In this video, I'm going to list 7 outdated, overused characters that are not at all good anymore, but are still overrated by everyone. Starting off with Xingqiu. Still praised as a top 3 4-star, he's definitely not. In every team where Hydra application matters, Vape, Hyper Bloom, Taser, Freeze, he just isn't a good option. And that is mainly because he has a 21 second long skill and burst cooldown. This is horrible, because almost all DPSs, name any one, they want 16 to 18 second rotations. Extending that rotation, waiting on cooldown, is a massive DPS loss. This alone is the reason why he's so bad for most characters. He used to be used with pyro DPSs when Vape was the only option, but now there's this Sitlali Melt, who provides massive buffs while Xingqiu just gives nothing. Even Chevro's Overload is much better than Xingqiu Vape for pyro DPSs. He has zero synergy with any strong DPSs, and lacks strong teams which are required for Stygian and these days even Abyss. One more QOL issue is that he only works with normal attack characters, automatically cutting out so many top tier DPSs like Malwika, Nefer, Chaska, etc. Then there's the big issue, his 300% ER needs, making him very hard to use in Stygian Onslaught as solo Hydro. You need to build a lot of ER which would tank the hell out of his personal damage. In Lunar teams, which are the strongest team archetype that need Hydro, he's useless. Ino completely ends his career. This image is the reason why. She also provides strong buffs with constellations, and has no normal attack requirement. Xingqiu gives no buffs, can't work with Nefer, extends rotations for Flynn's, making him much worse than Ino, and as Scoffia Freeze teams, he's a pretty good 4th slot, but he still isn't a great option as he gives no buffs and steals Cryo Resonance. Candace, Dahlia, and Mona end up being better. Overall, he's shit for every normal attack DPS worth playing because of his long cooldown, lack of buffs, and crazy ER needs. He's got 0 high DPS or meta teams where he contributes, no relevance in Stygian Onslaught, just isn't a good 4-star support anymore. His pros are that he's got a lot of Hydro hits, which is great for Papilla Shield Break, his one very good team with Lauma because this Hyper Bloom team, his insane Hydro application comes in very useful. He also helps keep the team alive. His personal damage is decent. This team can clear all Abysses and some Stygians too. Next up is Arlecchino. Arlecchino is the most overrated main DPS ever. I have seen many people grouping her with the likes of Malwika, Nefer, and Skirk and calling her a top tier DPS, but no. She isn't even close, and after Nicole's release, she won't even be in the top 10 DPS conversation. Her best team, with Sitlali, Bennett, and Escoffier, only she's for around 105,000 DPS. That's not much at all, by the way. You have non-cry teams hitting 150k, 170k DPS at C0R0. It is absolutely criminal to be stealing Sitlali and Bennett from Malwika and doing 40% less DPS than her. And that sucks because Stygian requires 3 different high DPS teams without overlapping characters. And honestly, all other team options are just cope. Vape with Yolan sucks, and Overload doesn't even break 90k practically. Her DPS just does not cut it in most Stygian Onslaught. She definitely cannot clear difficult bosses like the Gecko, forget about the Knuckle, or even the Lunar Dog, even if you give her Kazuha. But damage is not the only issue. Chances are, even against easy Stygian bosses, you will have to reset a lot. It won't be an easy clear. First of all, she cannot be healed. This means that you either need a shielder, which is a DPS loss, or pay attention and dodge. Dodging equals to either death or not a consistent combo equals to a DPS loss. And second of all, in her melt team, you need to lock in to do your combo correctly. Yes, Malwika also has this issue, but one wrong move and your whole run is cooked. And not just Stygian, even in Abyss against very difficult chambers, you will struggle with her regular teams, like the Valdan enemies last patch, not easy without Binefa Wheelchair. Speaking of Binefa Wheelchair, did you know that I lied earlier that her best cheating team was Sitlali, Bennett, Sucrose? It's actually Inefa, Columbina, and Sucrose. That's how much she got power crept. If you're still using Arlecchino in 2026, I'm begging you dude, please pull an actual good DPS. Like Zibai for example, the second you get a taste of what having high DPS feels like, she'll be on your bench forever. So overall, Arlecchino has one usable team that requires stealing 2 of an actual good DPS with premium supports, low survivability, mechanically difficult combos, needs Wonderflight stacking to sheet 100k, and just sucks compared to everyone else she's grouped with. Pros are she's actually not that bad. If you're skilled at playing her and don't mind resetting, she can clear a lot of Stygian bosses. Next up is Kazuha, a 1.7 character. His usage rates over the past few years have gone from consistently above 80% to now less than 10%. And that's because he just sucks now. He's not good for a single meta team or a single good DPS. They all just have better options that are a massive DPS upgrade to Kazuha. First of all, he doesn't work with lunar carries like Flynn's. They find damage percent buffs absolutely useless, and that sucks for Kazuha because for the past 8 months, the entire region, the entire meta, that means multiple 5-star characters that have the highest damaging teams, just don't work with him, and mainly most bosses in several Stygian onslaughts show lunar stuff, and this guy will just be a bad option for most of those bosses, making his pull value very low. Sucrose just ends Kazuha's career. She gives EM instead of damage bonus, and EM is a lot more useful. But Kazuha's uselessness doesn't end there. He used to be best in slot for most Pyro, Hydro, Electro, and Cryo DPSs, but now better supports have come out, much better supports. Escoffier makes Kazuha look like a trash buffer in Cryo teams. She's a massive upgrade. Chevreuse ends Kazuha for all Electro carries and some Pyro carries. She just gives so much more than he does and is much better, even QOL-wise. Kazuha does have a few issues. VV needs to be reapplied in multi-wave content. It requires complicated double scroll setups that can easily go wrong and are inconsistent, and just doesn't work at all against enemies with innate auras, and the worst one. Viridescent Venerer only lasts for 10 seconds. That is just not enough. For reaction-based DPS's 1.0 C0 free 4-star character Sucrose again shits on Kazuha because EM for multiplicative reactions is just that OP, and Kazuha can use his burst in those teams. Overall, Kazuha just doesn't buff enough anymore to be slotted into any good teams. More niche supports like Ian-san or Escoffier just do so much more for the team than he does. Because of not having any real high DPS meta teams where he isn't also easily replaceable by a better 4-star, he just doesn't see any use in Stygian Onslaught, and he's best in slot for not a single character, not even second or third best option in most cases. Pros offers amazing grouping with the skill. This is so very useful for the Mandragora boss and mainly the Lunar Dog, making clears easy, and he will be great for the Wolf boss too, and also very useful in Spiral Abyss and Imaginarium Theater. Furina. Furina is not at all an S tier support anymore, even though I personally love her. It's just she doesn't really have any meta high DPS strong teams except for Skirk. With the release of so many newer supports after her, and an entire region of characters that find her absolutely useless, her pull value has fallen off a cliff. And I've already talked about how not being able to work with non-white characters just sucks. All the meta teams, the new Stygian bosses, and endgame content are shilling Lunar, where her main buff is useless. But outside of Lunar too, she isn't that good of a support anymore. Furina's burst gives 75% damage bonus at max fanfare. Sounds OP, right? But still, not a lot of characters actually want her. One big reason she doesn't have much use is you need a very strong, team-wide healer to stack fanfare. Examples are Zhenyun, Jean, Baiju, and Escoffier. And the only good team-wide healer there is Escoffier. Outside of that, you're not actually getting the max damage bonus in 95% of the teams that you play her in. Bennett is not even enough for like half fanfare. This severely restricts team building options. This is why she can't actually be played with many DPSs, including Varka. Swapping out a strong support or sub DPSs for a mid team-wide healer is just too big of a DPS loss in most teams. She's decent as a vape enabler for pyro DPSs, but Siddlali or even Rosaria Mount is just so much better. That's because her Hydra application is slow and inconsistent, and her skill cooldown is 20 seconds compared to Siddlali 16. Chevreuse Overload 2 is generally much better than Furina teams for all Electro DPSs and some pyro ones. Also, her ER issues as a solo Hydro are just tough in Stygian. You need a lot of ER. As a general support, like up until early Natlan, she still had great value. She was best in slot for many strong DPSs like Kenny, Chaska, Thoran, Navia, Nevalet, etc. But since then, her value has gone way down because of the release of newer supports like Shalonin, Mawika, especially Tyrion, especially Siddlali, Yun-san, Hexorai, Fischl, and Mona, and Aino. So she isn't actual best in slot for any character except Escoffier anymore. This leads her to be pretty useless in Stygian outside of that. She has restricted team building because you need a strong healer, doesn't have good synergy with all the big damage dealers like Flynn, Zibai, Nefer, Mawiko, Veresa, Molani, and even, for random weaker DPSs like Wanderer or Yoimiya. Durin, I'd say, is a much better versatile support for various reasons, if you don't want to play wheelchair teams. Pros. Absolutely irreplaceable for Skirk. Escoffier has literally perfect synergy with Furina, it's crazy. She's also an amazing support for Navia, Nevalet, and Hu Tao. Xiangling. Xiangling is the most overrated trash character ever. You see people everywhere on Reddit and comment sections praising her so much. Everyone thinks Xiangling is this insane OP legendary 4-star character. No, she isn't. Not at all. She was good back in 2021 where the DPS required to clear Abyss was 25,000, but now, definitely not. There's not a single character that uses her. She's bad for electro characters like Coriander, Versa, and Overload, not good for Hydro DPS like Molani for Vape, trash even in mono pyro teams, not even a good option in burning teams with Kanichi or Emily, doesn't find use with Anemo DPS, so she's just useless everywhere. That's because of a few reasons. In Stygian Onslaught, the only difficult game mode, she's useless because number 1, she just doesn't work without Bennett, which severely restricts team building, and number 2, has 300% ER requirements with Favonius Lance or she's not getting her burst back, or you're going to need to spend 3 seconds funneling Bennett's skill particles to her. It is impossible for her to burst every rotation smoothly. She doesn't even give any buffs. She has a 20-second long cooldown, which genuinely sucks, as I've already discussed with Xingqiu. Extended rotation is just not good. Not a single DPS uses her anymore because of this reason. You would much rather use, in all of those teams where she could be used, potentially, best is Durin, second best Mawika, but even just Pyro Traveler is 10 times better. They can hold 4-piece scroll and give 55% damage bonus, and mainly they don't need to use their burst. No need to build ER. Therefore, for every team Xiangling could be used in, name it. PMC is just an upgrade, and Durin and Mawika are like a 25 to 30% team DPS increase to Xiangling in every team, and infinitely better QOL-wise. Xiangling is not a legendary 4-star, bro. She does not have a single meta team, or even half-decent non-meta team actually. Appears nowhere in Stygian Onslaught, long cooldown, so it doesn't synergize with any good DPS, has horrible ER needs, forces you to slot in Bennett, and just sucks overall. Stop grouping her with Sukos and Fischl and Bennett. She is not a good 4-star. Pros about xiangling. Xiangling has amazing power application for bosses that need it, like the Lava Dragon or Abyss 1211, and is amazing for enemies with innate auras like the Hydro Tulpa or the Frost Knight Hera, since her Pyronado actually has no ICD. This means that you can melt or vape every hit. That's actually OP. Still though, outside of those two niche cases, she isn't good for anything. Novilet at some point was pretty cool, but now he is nowhere near the level of forget about top 5. He won't even be near the top 15 best main DPS discussion. Why? Well, most importantly, he does not do enough damage, bro. In his hyper carry team, you will barely struggle to hit 100k DPS. He simply, as a carry, cannot brute force difficult bosses. This is not enough damage for Fearless Stygian, and without shield offfielders doing all the work for him, he will definitely struggle to clear even easy bosses. People say, well, at least he's flexible, unlike Skirk or Nefer. Yes, so is Ayato. Being flexible is not useful when you're also easily replaceable, and I'm saying it. Every time a new support drops, his fans somehow brand it as a quote-unquote Novilet buff, when it's just another heavily wheelchair team that diminishes his value even more. Novilet needs to steal every new premium 5-star sub DPS, give him all the meta supports, and he will output a grand total of 110,000 DPS with a personal team damage contribution of 36%. Now you tell me, is that a wheelchair or an ICU? His best team at KQM standards is with Columbina, Inefa, and Lauma. So I guess a Hyperbloom team where his main job is Hydro application, he is literally a DPS loss to Aino in that team. That's how bad his carry potential is. Using Burst Skirk is a much bigger increase over Sidlali for him, and he needs at least a 4-cost team to reach this very low level of DPS, but that's not an issue. I'm not a cost system merchant. But why I don't like Novilet is because of a massive QoL issue. He is unplayable at C0 without a shield. Unplayable. You absolutely need, at the very least, Inefer's shield, who I don't have. There's a good chance if you're facing a violent boss like the Papilla, 4 out of your 4 charge attacks will be interrupted, your damage will be 0, and they make pretty violent enemies these days, even in Abyss. And it's not even a skill issue. You cannot dodge or dash iframe his laser. And sometimes, he just gets erectile dysfunction. If you play Novilet, you know what I mean. And he's not as easy to play as people say. For max damage, if you do random bullshit, your DPS won't even be enough for Abyss. Overall, 0 damage as a hyper carry, even with 3 5-star supports, 0 usage in Stygian Onslaught without shield offfielders who can very much clear without him, probably faster, 0 interruption resistance, 7 meta sub DPS is needed to break 100k DPS. Pros about Novilet. He's got insane AoE, which is great for theater and good for many Stygian bosses too. There's like 3 to 4 bosses Novilet hyper carry can clear pretty comfortably, and dying with him is never an issue because he's got crazy self heals. Remember, all of these characters are still very usable in Abyss, but I think it would be misleading to tell people that Novilet is one of the best DPSs in the game, or Farina is worth pulling over someone like Columbina. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and leave a like and subscribe, and see you.